All right. Well, I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I wanted to show you some of the numbers of this initiative that you guys know started a while ago. Um, I'm gonna take off from what Martin, I think, said just recently and what Edwin said. Martin was talking about the difference between academic and non-academic people basically working on Mixos. And uh, well, that is very, very prevalent in countries like where I where I come from, in a developing country in Costa Rica, particularly because of the bureaucracy of academic endeavors. We have a ton of bureaucracy related to academia. I know that's probably true anywhere. And also the how political science has become. And so starting with that Martin said, I really appreciate Edwin's slide on basically what is needed for mixer results. And he mentioned educated collectors, assistance identifying species, and basically dissemination of results. And the last part, dissemination of results, it's what, in a way, made us start this. If you remember from the last Congress here in Costa Rica, and I'm showing you the picture on the right, Indira Kalinasundaram was present, and she was a little sad in a way that the mixer world didn't have a fluent strategy for communication, for internal communication, let's say within the mixo people, or the whatever we think are the people working on mixos. And she proposed this. She proposed a more fluent way of communicating. If you guys remember, we all, or for those of you who were in Costa Rica, we ended up signing a paper, and my original intention was to take that initiative and convince some university officials to basically support us on a Slime Molds journal, supported by an academic institution and all these things. I go back to Martin. As Martin said, all this bureaucracy and as I was mentioning, all the politics of science these days basically made us rethink the strategy. And at some point with Steve Stevenson, you guys see there on a picture on the left, very interesting young version of Stevenson, a young version of Indira, when they were working together in the United States, when Indira was a Fulbright student. This picture, I got it from Stevenson himself. We started rethinking the idea of whether we really wanted to go through, all this academic bureaucracy to finally open a journal on slime molds or not. And we came to the conclusion that no, we could work this whole project from the perspective of citizen science, or as you guys were talking about earlier, basically as non-academic people. In essence, as it was mentioned before, we're all citizens, and so we can still move on a lot of ideas, strategies, and proposals, outside of our academic hats, at least for those of us who are involved in academic institutions. So we opened this thing 3 years ago based on Indira's proposal that everybody supported there. We moved this idea forward with the whole purpose of dissemination of results, basically what Edwin was mentioning earlier. And Well, 3 years later, because this is the next edition, and one whole pandemia in between, which at least in this part of the world seems to have been forgotten completely. We have 3 volumes, one in July 21, one in July 22, and one in July 23, which is the last one just recently released. And in few words, the process has been slow, but it's going steady. We have been able to find all the little parts of the system, the editorial system, and the journal. And well, I think it's still gonna continue for a while. So far, we have received 44 contributions in the first 3 volumes. Quite interestingly, 43 of those, or 42 of those, have been on Mixos, and just 2 on other types of amoebae, one on dictostelids and one on testate amoebae. Of those 44 contributions, as you guys can see there, 32 have been or have had an experimental component. But the part that for me, it's very pleasant to see is that half of those contributions come from developing countries. And basically the areas that you guys see down there are the regions of the world where the contributions have come from. Australia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, mainly Japan, North America, South America, Western and Eastern Europe. And we have received the support from reviewers and editors from all those other regions, basically the same ones as before, plus Africa, East Africa. A couple of contributions were George Derrito, a person that works on Mixos and has knowledge in Mixos and dictostelids in Kenya, helped us with. But anyway, during this time, we have learned how to communicate with kinder children, with preschool children, and how to basically help them understand a little bit of taxonomy. And this is from Peter McDonald from Australia on your left. We also learned, and that's the picture in the center, from a kind of interesting, weird, but interesting experiment from Thomas in the Philippines, that Mixos seem to grow better on Scotch-Brite sponges, those sponges that we use to wash dishes, than on coconut fiber. And more recently, in the picture on the right, we learned that, well, if you puncture a plasmodium, basically the plasmodium self-heals in about 3 hours, and that in between, whatever oozes out of that wound seems to be fluorescent. And that's from a work from a Chilean student that basically was focusing on autofluorescence. So we have learned very different things from very different perspectives, but they're all useful in a way, not only for those people working on myxomycetes from an academic standpoint, but also from those working from non-academic perspectives. But basically numbers, that's the bandwidth. That's what I'm showing you there for the last couple of years, from July 21 through July 23, that we've had in the servers associated with the journal. And basically we see 3 peaks, and those 3 peaks coincide with the publication of the full volumes in July. We basically, for ISSN regulations, and what we established at some point, that it was going to be a yearly publication, we have to submit or publish the complete yearly volume in July, even though, as most of you know, we have ongoing publication for practical purposes. But that's basically what we see. But if we see the base of bandwidth use in the server from the first to the second year, we've had a 65% increment. So hopefully that means that more people are actually using this server, this platform, and the information here. We would like to believe that's just the way it is. But independent of that, we are very pleased that something that started actually in the last ICSN as part of one of the sessions, just like the ones you guys are having in Estonia, it's actually having some results, some visible results. And when we look at the number of unique IPs, presumably, or we like to think like that those are unique users, we see that there are something between 240, 245 users per month, and kind of like very steady at first, a peak there, but I think that peak is also has to do with management of the journal. And then a slight increment in the last couple of months, but overall we see more or less a trend around 240 unique users per month. And for me, I would like to think that that's a pretty good impact. I know there are other initiatives like the guys you guys were talking about earlier, the Facebook appreciation page, and I know you know there are other platforms showing information on mixolysis, but for our purposes, we would like to think that this is pretty interesting. When we look at where the users are from, that's basically what we see. A lot of the users have IPs based in the United States, which is not really surprising if you guys know about internet usage in the world. So this is probably related to simply the fact that a lot of people in the US use a lot of resources online. And but interestingly, the following countries, the next countries, the countries after the United States are there. You guys see them: Australia, the Philippines, Brazil. They actually go up. Japan, Germany, Russia, Spain, Mexico, and Colombia. For me, the interesting thing also when we look at all these numbers is that, well, we have a mixture also of developed and developing countries in those names. And that's quite interesting as well. So when we look at the papers from the last 3 volumes of Slime Molds that have been downloaded the most, that's basically what we have. Those are the papers that most people have looked at, and actually not even looked at, but downloaded from the server. And some of the numbers for me of downloads are quite impressive, or at least I didn't expect those numbers in a couple of years. And we would like to think that these are, in a way, proxies for impact, what people are actually getting from these. We have things like the papers from Thomas's group in the Philippines that have been downloaded more than 500 times. And then other papers, as you guys can see in the top center and top right, from Mexican researchers and Brazilian researchers that have been downloaded, those numbers, 275 times and 196 times. That's quite pleasant for us to see that the most downloaded papers, they all come from researchers based in developing countries, and very likely from people downloading the papers in their home countries. And quite interestingly, and to Dimitri's, to make Dimitri happy, I hope he's there, his review on the Mixolysis book, it's the most downloaded, let's say, non-experimental paper. So quite interesting. When, as you guys know, we also post all the contributions once they're published in Zenodo, which is this open or free initiative based in the European or funded by the European Union. And we also see pretty interesting numbers over there. As you guys see on top, the paper from Mexican researchers has been downloaded up close to 300 times, and one very interesting paper on how to use Mixamycete information for teaching tasks has been downloaded close to 100 times. So we would like to think that those numbers, in a way, are telling us something about the impact. But regardless of that, what Steve Stevenson and I have done here, it's basically to provide some support from a non-academic standpoint to, well, anybody that can and want to communicate information in Nixos in this way, not in the form of all these online platforms that I know that are more interactive, but more in the form of perhaps more analytical ways and stuff like that. But either way, the important part is that we established it, that it's here, that you guys know it's here, and you can tell everyone, and you guys can use it for communication purposes. Maybe not. I understand the high profile research that a lot of you guys carry on that has to be published somewhere else. But there are interesting things that can still be published in platforms like this. So far, well, we think that 3 volumes are not bad, and hopefully we have many more in the future. We think this has been a pretty successful initiative of citizen science / basic science, because the journal was conceived as a very broad journal that accepts both sort of like scientific papers, but also contributions that are totally non-scientific. We would like to think that this has also been some sort of support for scientists and readers from developing regions, starting obviously with the fact that everything here is free for both the authors and obviously the readers, but also considering that this was conceived again as a initiative outside of both the academic bureaucracy and outside, in a way, of all the politics of modern science and professional publication trends and all those things that you guys know take place these days. So we also know that, as you guys can see, there's 74% of people, so 3 out of every 4 people accessing the servers do type directly or click on links to go straight to the papers and the journal, and that 21% of people actually just go to Google or Bing or one of those services online, and they actually look for the information, and only 4% of the users in the platform access the resources from social media platforms. So for us, that's something to think about. Both Stephen Stevenson and I are not social media people, especially Steve Stevenson, for those of you who know him. And but we need to rethink a little bit our strategy of dispersing the information. But so far, we think this is going just fine. We don't see any problems. I think we're gonna keep moving forward in the future, and we are very pleased that actually the abstracts book of this ICSIM was able to be put up in our servers. I think, or we think, that this is going to help people in the recent future. Not forget that this event took place. You guys are living right now, and look in a different way what people were doing in the slime mold world. You know, besides all the professional papers that everybody publishes in the abstracts book, there's also other information that can tell people in the future what we all were thinking about, we all were doing in different parts of the world. So with this, I just finished the presentation, and well, just have fun in Estonia. Thank you.
Carlos, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. I'm Karina. I'm chairing this session. So are there any questions for Carlos? Great. I have a question. Carlos, what's your capacity for taking more publications? How are you coping?
We have a small team here, and we have not a lot of funds, but we have some funds to keep up with any potential future increment in the demand. So I think we can probably double the number of publications per year.
Okay, that's great. And what sort of support do the people giving you papers, etc., what sort of support do you give them, such as editing and getting images organized in a format? Do you do all that?
It depends on the person. In these 3 years, I mean, some people have sent the contribution already, completely diagrammed and everything.
Yep.
But we have received basically just text and images, and we have been we basically had to do all the put together. So we can do either. Of course, we prefer when the contribution comes
finalized, complete.
In a way, yeah, because we still have to do some editing and formatting and things like that. But it's fine. We can deal with just text and images and put the things together.
That's great. Now I think there was a question, Martin. Just bring the.
Yeah, Carlos, hello, Martin Schnittler here. I feel myself a little bit guilty. And Carlos, you know why? Since I have not yet published in the journal, although I like the idea an awful lot. And I also have to tell you the reason. A lot of research in institutional academia is just constrained by this awful bureaucracy. So usually the research is done in the frame of whatever qualification works, master's thesis, PhD thesis, and so on. And the first thing, of course, we need a journal with an impact factor. That's a real problem. And this fight for impact factors has distorted the academic landscape. I'm myself personally not a fan of impact factors. I don't want to tell the story at all, but I think impact factors are simply mainstreaming science and just killing creativity from science. But my question is, when we do PhD thesis and this kind of stuff, would it make sense that we also tell our students to publish the abstracts of these thesis works, which are usually published on some university server, where even a web search like Google will never find them. So they are published on the internet, but they are also not published. Would it make sense to publish the abstracts the students have any way to do with their thesis in your journal?
Absolutely. I don't see any problem. I mean, they can be either individual contributions, if it's just an abstract with maybe slightly bit more, a couple pictures or something like that, or we could even do just one publication per year with all with a list and information on all the theses for that period. I agree with you. I think that's the type of information that we would like to make visible, because otherwise it's hard for people in other places, I mean, even for ourselves, to find it. Like, I don't know how many of you, for example, in Europe, knew of this Chilean girl working on fluorescence in Plasmodium. And, you know, in the same way, for those of us who are in the Americas, we probably don't know a lot of the thesis details in Europe and so on. So I don't see any problem. For me, this is exactly what the initiative is for.
Hello, my name is Elon Tribush. Question I have for you is something that you mentioned you're looking into, which is social media. But also I'm wondering what we can do here to help make the journal more widespread and known.
Well, support with all the social media communication campaigns and things like that. The truth is, we do have some Facebook page, which is just fine. We're not on top of it because we're busy with other academic stuff, and we're not social media people. But we also know, and that's probably true for those of you over there, that Facebook is all-time, you know, history. There are other platforms that especially younger people are using that that can be even more pleasant and attractive for younger users. So we here, at least in Latin America, we're just starting. We just got a couple of funds there to hire a social media kind of like campaign manager kind of thing. And we are just starting. We had our first conversations, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So there's going to be a person based in Colombia helping us with all these things. But the truth is that if someone over there has experience and the initiative to help spread all this information and skills with social media platforms and stuff, I mean, just send us an email and we can put together, you know, a plan, and you could help a lot from there.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions, comments? Nope. Thank you so much, Carlos. That's terrific. And I'm going to put it out there that I am going to send something to be published in the next year. So I have everyone's going to be on my back now to make sure I do it. So it was lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.